Chapter 70 of the Old Curiosity Shop. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recorded by Mill Nicholson. The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens. Chapter 70. Day broke, and found them still upon their way. Since leaving home they had halted here and there for necessary refreshment, and had frequently been delayed, especially in the night time, by waiting for fresh horses. They had made no other stoppages, but the weather continued rough, and the roads were often steep and heavy. It would be night again before they reached their place of destination. Kit, all bluff and hardened with the cold, went on manfully, and, having enough to do to keep his blood circulating, to picture to himself the happy end of this adventurous journey, and to look about him and be amazed at everything, had little spare time for thinking of discomforts. Though his impatience, and that of his fellow travellers, rapidly increased as the day waned, the hours did not stand still. The short daylight of winter soon faded away, and it was dark again when they had yet many miles to travel. As it grew dusk, the wind fell. Its distant moanings were more low and mournful, and, as it came creeping up the road and rattling covertly among the dry brambles on either hand, it seemed like some great phantom for whom the way was narrow, whose garments rustled as it stalked along. By degrees it lulled and died away, and then it came on to snow. The flakes fell fast and thick, soon covering the ground some inches deep, and spreading abroad a solemn stillness. The rolling wheels were noiseless, and the sharp ring and clatter of the horses' hoofs became a dull, muffled tramp. The life of their progress seemed to be slowly hushed, and something death-like to usurp its place. Shading his eyes from the falling snow, which froze upon their lashes and obscured his sight, Kit often tried to catch the earliest glimpse of twinkling lights, denoting their approach to some not distant town. He could descry objects enough at such times, but none correctly. Now a tall church spire appeared in view, which presently became a tree, a barn, a shadow on the ground thrown on it by their own bright lamps. Now there were horsemen, foot passengers, carriages going on before, or meeting them in narrow ways, which, when they were close upon them, turned to shadows too. A wall, a ruin, a sturdy gable end, would rise up in the road, and, when they were plunging headlong at it, would be the road itself. Strange turnings too, bridges and sheets of water, appeared to start up here and there, making the way doubtful and uncertain, and yet they were on the same bare road, and these things, like the others, as they were passed, turned into dim illusions. He descended slowly from his seat, for his limbs were numbed, when they arrived at a lone posting-house, and inquired how far they had to go to reach their journey's end. It was a late hour in such by-places, and the people were abed, but a voice answered from an upper window, 10 miles. The 10 minutes that ensued appeared an hour, but at the end of that time a shivering figure led out the horses they required, and after another brief delay they were again in motion. It was a cross-country road, full, after the first 3 or 4 miles, of holes and cart-ruts, which, being covered by the snow, were so many pitfalls to the trembling horses, and obliged them to keep a foot-pace. As it was next to impossible for men so much agitated as they were by this time to sit still and move so slowly, all 3 got out and plodded on behind the carriage. The distance seemed interminable, and the walk was most laborious. As each was thinking within himself that the driver must have lost his way, a church bell, close at hand, struck the hour of midnight, and the carriage stopped. It had moved softly enough, but when it ceased to crunch the snow, the silence was as startling as if some great noise had been replaced by perfect stillness. 'This is the place, gentlemen,' said the driver, dismounting from his horse, and knocking at the door of a little inn. 'Halloa! Past 12 o'clock is the dead of night here.' The knocking was loud and long, but it failed to rouse the drowsy inmates. All continued dark and silent as before. They fell back a little, and looked up at the windows, which were mere black patches in the whitened house front. No light appeared. The house might have been deserted, or the sleepers dead, for any air of life it had about it. They spoke together with a strange inconsistency, in whispers, unwilling to disturb again the dreary echoes they had just now raised. 'Let us go on,' said the younger brother, 'and leave this good fellow to wake them if he can. I cannot rest until I know that we are not too late. Let us go on, in the name of Heaven.' They did so, leaving the postillion to order such accommodation as the house afforded, and to renew his knocking. Kit accompanied them with a little bundle which he had hung in the carriage when they left home, and had not forgotten since. The bird, in his old cage, just as she had left him. She would be glad to see her bird, he knew. The road wound gently downward. As they proceeded, they lost sight of the church whose clock they had heard, and of the small village clustering round it. The knocking, which was now renewed, and which in that stillness they could plainly hear, troubled them. They wished the man would forbear, or that they had told him not to break the silence until they returned. The old church tower, clad in a ghostly garb of pure cold white, again rose up before them, and a few moments brought them close beside it. A venerable building, grey even in the midst of the hoary landscape. An ancient sundial on the belfry wall was nearly hidden by the snowdrift, and scarcely to be known for what it was. Time itself seemed to have grown dull and old, as if no day were ever to displace the melancholy night. A wicket gate was close at hand, but there was more than one path across the churchyard to which it led, and, uncertain which to take, they came to a stand again. The village street, if street that could be called, which was an irregular cluster of poor cottages of many heights and ages, some with their fronts, some with their backs, and some with gable ends towards the road, with here and there a signpost or a shed encroaching on the path, was close at hand. There was a faint light in a chamber window not far off, and Kit ran towards that house to ask their way. His first shout was answered by an old man within, who presently appeared at the casement, wrapping some garment round his throat as a protection from the cold, and demanded who was abroad at that unseasonable hour, wanting him. ''Tis hard weather, this,' he grumbled, 'and not a night to call me up in. My trade is not of that kind that I need to be roused from bed. The business on which folks want me will keep cold, especially at this season. What do you want?' 'I would not have roused you if I had known you were old and ill,' said Kit. 'Old?' repeated the other peevishly. 'How do you know I'm old? Not so old as you think, friend, perhaps. As to being ill, you will find many young people in worse case than I am. More's a pity that it should be so. Not that I should be strong and hearty for my years, I mean, but that they should be weak and tender. I ask your pardon, though,' said the old man, 'if I spoke rather rough at first. My eyes are not good at night. That's neither age nor illness, they never were, and I didn't see you were a stranger.' 'I'm sorry to call you from your bed,' said Kit, 'but those gentlemen you may see by the churchyard gate are strangers too, who have just arrived from a long journey, and seek the parsonage house. You can direct us?' 'I should be able to,' answered the old man in a trembling voice, 'for, come next summer, I've been sexton here a good 50 years. The right hand path, friend, is the road. There is no ill news for our good gentleman, I hope?' Kit thanked him, and made him a hasty answer in the negative. He was turning back, when his attention was caught by the voice of a child. Looking up, he saw a very little creature at a neighbouring window. 'What is that?' cried the child earnestly. 'Has my dream come true? Pray speak to me, whoever that is. Awake and up.' 'Poor boy!' said the sexton, before Kit could answer. 'How goes it,